I woke up at 6:47 a.m. to the sound of chains tightening around my $80,000 fishing boat because the HOA president decided it was too big for my own driveway. The rule banning boats over 20 feet? She invented it 3 days earlier. No vote, no warning, just an 11 p.m. email and a tow truck at dawn. Constance Wexford stood there in a pastel pantsuit, filming with her phone, smirking like she'd won. I was barefoot on freezing concrete, watching chains bite into the boat my father left me, the one I rebuilt piece by piece after my wife died. My coffee mug slipped from my hands and shattered on the driveway. That sound was the moment this stopped being an HOA dispute, because what she didn't know, that single tow attempt was about to cost her the entire lake. Ever had a neighbor who thought they owned the world? Stick around. This ends with her club banned forever. My name's Marcus Tremaine, 52 years old, retired Coast Guard engineer, 26 years keeping ships afloat in hurricanes you'll never want to meet. I moved to Pinewood Shores, North Carolina, because after my wife Lydia died 4 years ago from cancer, I needed peace, quiet mornings, a lake, a place where the only drama was whether the bass were biting. I bought a modest 1,400 square foot ranch house with cash from my military savings. Nothing fancy. The kind of place where you can hear cicadas at night and see stars without light pollution washing them out. My daughter Sienna, 27, veterinarian, lives 2 states away, thought I was crazy moving to a neighborhood with an HOA. "Dad," she said, "those people are insane." I told her Pinewood Shores was different, low-key. The HOA barely did anything except make sure your grass wasn't waist-high and your Christmas lights came down by February. I was wrong. Pinewood Shores wraps around Lake Talmadge, 340 homes, mixed crowd of retirees, young families, a few vacation rentals. The lake itself is privately owned by some development corporation nobody thinks about. There's a public boat ramp anyone can use, and then there's the Talmadge Yacht Club. Membership costs town $200 a year, which buys you access to private docks, a members-only beach, and the social clout of saying you're in the club. I never joined. Seemed pretentious. I'm a fisherman, not a cocktail party guy. I like the public ramp just fine. That's where Constance Wexford and I first crossed paths. Constance is 54, real estate broker, the kind of woman who wears monogrammed everything and introduces herself with her full name like she's running for office. 8 months ago, she got herself elected HOA president on a platform of restoring community standards, which is code for, I'm going to make everyone as miserable as I am. Her husband Reginald is an attorney. Contract law. Works one town over. Between the two of them, they've got enough legal knowledge and free time to be genuinely dangerous. Constance's thing is control. She's the type who measures your mailbox height with a tape measure, who counts the hours your trash cans sit on the curb, who drives past your house at night to see if your porch light is the HOA-approved wattage. And the worst part? She hides it all behind this sugary sweet voice, this performative politeness, like she's doing you a favor by citing you for having an oxidized mailbox post. The boat, my father's boat, was her line in the sand. That 1987 Champion base boat was the only thing my dad left me when he died. 24 feet, twin outboards, wood grain console he'd refinished by hand. After Lydia passed, I couldn't afford therapy, couldn't afford to fall apart. So I spent 2 years in my garage rebuilding that boat, sanding, varnishing, replacing every corroded bolt. Some nights I'd work until 3 a.m., hands blistered, sawdust in my hair, just so I didn't have to go inside to an empty house. When I finally launched it, it felt like breathing again. I kept it in my driveway. Perfectly legal. The HOA rules said nothing about boats, but Constance didn't like it. She didn't like that I didn't attend yacht club functions. Didn't like that I drove a 15-year-old truck. Didn't like that I existed in her sightline without seeking her approval. So 3 days before she had my boat towed, she called an emergency HOA board meeting. 4 people, no quorum, no community notice. And she rammed through a new rule. No commercial-sized vehicles or watercraft in driveways. Anything over 20 feet had to go. There was an exception, of course. Yacht club members could store their boats at the private marina. I wasn't a member. The morning that tow truck showed up, I paid $850 to get my boat out of the impound yard. Maxed out my credit card. Drove home shaking, not from fear, from rage. I made 2 phone calls that afternoon. One to an old Navy buddy who's now a real estate attorney, the other to the county clerk's office. Constance wanted to play property games. Fine. Let's see who really understands leverage. A week after I got my boat back, I parked it in my front yard. Not the driveway, the yard. Technically, Constance's new rule said driveways only. So I got creative. She lost her mind. Within 48 hours, I had my first violation notice, then another, then another. 12 citations in 14 days. Each one threatened $250 a day fines under some buried clause in the HOA's governing documents. Constance wasn't just enforcing rules anymore. She was inventing reasons to fine me. Trash cans left out 4 hours past pickup, mailbox post, showing signs of oxidation, garden hose improperly coiled. I'm not making this up. She photographed my garden hose. I didn't even know garden hoses had a proper coiling method. Apparently it's circular, not figure eight. Who knew? And she wasn't working alone. Constance recruited 3 neighbors to help document my every move. Brenda Kilpatrick, retired school teacher, Constance's bridge partner, the kind of woman who says, "Bless your heart," like a threat. Then there were Trevor and Mallory Gaines, a 30-something couple who'd just bought a $500,000 house and joined the yacht club within a week. New money trying desperately to look like old money. They'd drive past my house twice a day, phones out, filming like I was a tourist attraction. The weirdest part? Constance started parking her Lexus SUV directly across from my driveway. She'd just sit there, 20 minutes at a time, scrolling on her iPad, taking notes, making sure I knew she was watching. It was psychological warfare, and honestly, it was working. I started second-guessing everything. Is my trash can 6 inches too far left? Did I bring it in at 6:02 instead of 6 o'clock? It's amazing how fast someone can make you feel crazy in your own home. Then the certified letter arrived. HOA lien notice. $3,400 in accumulated fines. Signed by Reginald Wexford, Constance's husband, on official law firm letterhead. The letter said I had 30 days to pay in full, or the HOA could force a foreclosure auction on my house. Let me say that again. They were threatening to take my house because my garden hose wasn't coiled to Constance's standards. I sat on my porch that night, staring at that letter, and something my dad used to say came back to me. He'd served in Vietnam, came home to a country that didn't want him, and spent 20 years dealing with VA bureaucracy that treated him like a file number. He told me once, "Marcus, when someone uses rules as a weapon, you don't fight the rules. You make them prove the rules exist in the first place." I made a call. Her name's Denise Lattimore. Mid-40s, former JAG officer, sharp as a scalpel, charges a flat $1,500 retainer. I'd served with her brother in the Coast Guard. She owed me a favor, and I was calling it in. "Marcus," she said after I explained the situation, "give me 48 hours. What Denise found made me wish I'd called her 3 months earlier. She pulled the HOA's incorporation documents from county records. $12 for certified copies, best money I ever spent. Then she cross-referenced them with the meeting minutes Constance had supposedly filed, except there were no meeting minutes. The emergency board vote that created the boat rule, never formally recorded, not filed with the county, not notarized, nothing. I remembered something from my Coast Guard days. We had a legal officer who used to say that in military law, if an order isn't properly documented, it's not an order. It's just someone's opinion. Turns out civilian law works the same way. North Carolina requires HOA rule changes to be notarized and recorded within 72 hours. No paperwork means no legal vote. But it got better. Constance's emergency meeting only had 3 board members present. The bylaws require 5 for any amendments. She didn't just skip paperwork, she violated quorum requirements. Every fine, every lien, every threat was built on a foundation of nothing. Denise explained it to me. When an HOA acts outside its legal authority, those actions are void. It's called ultra vires, beyond the powers. Constance essentially tried to foreclose on my house using a rule that never legally existed. We drafted a cease and desist letter that could cut glass, remove all liens, reimburse my towing costs, stop the harassment, or we file a lawsuit for unlawful collection practices. Denise also added a bonus. She threatened to report Reginald to the state bar. Turns out drafting enforcement letters for an HOA your wife controls is the kind of conflict of interest that gets attorneys disbarred. We sent it certified mail on a Friday afternoon. By Monday, Constance called an emergency HOA meeting. I showed up, sat in the back row, recorded everything on my phone. I'd learned that North Carolina's a one-party consent state, which meant I could record any conversation I was part of without telling anyone. Funny how useful Google becomes when someone's trying to destroy your life. The meeting was chaos. Constance stumbled through some excuse about clerical errors and promised to review the fines. She wouldn't look at me, wouldn't say my name, just kept shuffling papers like she could find an answer somewhere in her binder. After the meeting, I was walking to my truck when she intercepted me in the parking lot. The fake, sweet voice was gone. "You're making this so much harder than it needs to be, Marcus," she said, voice low, almost hissing. "This is about property values, Ma." "No, Constance," I interrupted. "This is about you not liking that I don't kiss your ring. But here's the thing. I've survived hurricanes at sea. You think your binder full of bylaws scares me?" Her jaw tightened. I could see her hand shaking on her purse strap. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she whispered. I smiled. Funny, I was just thinking the same thing. I walked away. The smell of honeysuckle from a nearby fence mixed with hot asphalt and her overpowering gardenia perfume, the kind that clings to your nostrils long after she's gone. As I reached my truck, I noticed Trevor Gaines sitting in his Tesla, filming us through the windshield. I waved directly at his camera. Smiled. A week later, the HOA quietly removed the liens. No apology, no reimbursement. But my boat stayed exactly where it was. Constance wasn't done, though. I could feel it. She was just regrouping. And I was right. 2 weeks later, I launched my boat at the public ramp just after dawn. It was my routine. Early morning fishing, back by 10, nobody around to bother me. The lake was glass smooth, air cool enough to see your breath. Perfect. Halfway across the water, the engine sputtered, coughed, died. I checked the fuel line. Clean. Checked the spark plugs. Fine. Opened the fuel tank and immediately smelled it. Water. Someone had dumped water into my gas tank, enough to kill the engine dead, but not enough to be obvious until I was stranded. It took me 2 hours to paddle back. July heat, no shade, sweat soaking through my shirt. By the time Harbor Patrol found me and towed me in, I was dehydrated and furious. The volunteer who helped me dock, older guy named Carl, retired mailman, leaned in close. "You're the third boat this month," he whispered. "All owners who crossed Constance." I didn't have proof, couldn't prove anything. But I knew. What I didn't expect was the social warfare that came next. The annual Pinewood Shores 4th of July potluck had been a neighborhood tradition for 20 years. Open invitation. Everyone brought a dish. I'd spent 12 hours smoking a brisket, my dad's recipe, the one thing I actually knew how to cook well. Showed up at 6 with 15 pounds of meat that smelled like heaven. Brenda Kilpatrick met me at the door of the community center. "I'm sorry, Marcus," she said, not looking sorry at all. "This is a private function now, members only." "Members of what?" "The yacht club." She smiled that tight, practiced smile. "New policy. We're trying to maintain a certain standard." Behind her, I could see 60 people inside, neighbors I'd waved to for 2 years, families whose kids I'd taught to tie fishing knots. And there was Constance, standing near the buffet table, watching me get turned away. She raised her wine glass in a mock toast. I stood there holding my brisket like an idiot while Brenda closed the door in my face. I was walking back to my truck when someone called my name. Vera Polanski, 78 years old, spine curved from osteoporosis, but eyes sharp as ever. She'd lived in Pinewood Shores since the beginning, one of the first families to buy in 1989. She caught up to me in the parking lot, breathing hard. "Don't let her win," she said, pressing something into my hand. "This lake belonged to everyone once." It was a yellowed newspaper clipping from 1989. Lake Talmadge development announcement. I almost tossed it in my truck and forgot about it, but something made me read it that night. And that's when I saw it. The lake wasn't owned by the HOA. It wasn't even owned by the yacht club. It was owned by something called Talmadge Recreation Corp., a private corporation registered in Delaware. I'd assumed the yacht club owned the lake because they acted like they did, but legally, they were just tenants. I spent the next 3 days digging through county records. Talmadge Recreation Corp. was delinquent on property taxes. 8 years of unpaid bills, $127,000 owed. The county had sent notices, but nobody had responded because the corporation's address was a defunct P.O. box in Wilmington. Delaware corporate records cost me $75 to search. One listed shareholder, Desmond Pruitt, age 81, original developer of Pinewood Shores. I found him in an assisted living facility in Richmond, Virginia. The drive took 4 hours. The place smelled like industrial laundry detergent and weak coffee, that specific nursing home smell that settles into your clothes. Desmond Pruitt sat in the common room in a wheelchair, blanket over his lap despite the summer heat, but his eyes were clear. "You're here about the lake," he said before I could introduce myself. I nodded. "Good," he said. "It's about damn time somebody cared." Pruitt told me he'd developed Pinewood Shores as an affordable lakefront community for working families. The yacht club had started as a casual fishing club, just neighbors who wanted to chip in for a shared dock. But over the years it had morphed into something else, exclusive, expensive, everything he'd hated. "I let the corporation go dormant when my health went south," he said, hands shaking slightly on the wheelchair arms. "Couldn't afford the tax debt. Figured the county would seize it eventually and sell it off. Didn't think anyone would care." "I care," I said. He studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled, first real smile I'd seen from anyone in months. "I'll sell you the whole corporation for $1, he said, "on one condition: you pay off the back taxes and you keep those snobs from ruining my lake." I did the math in my head. $127,000 in back taxes, another $15,000 in legal fees to transfer the corporation properly. I had $98,000 in savings. I'd need to sell some of Lydia's jewelry, the pieces Sienna didn't want, the ones I'd been holding on to for no good reason. That would get me another $30,000. My daughter could loan me the rest. It was insane. I could lose everything. But I thought about my boat chained to that tow truck, thought about Constance's smirk, thought about Brenda closing the door in my face while I held my father's brisket recipe. "Deal," I said. 3 weeks later, I owned Lake Talmadge. I didn't announce that I owned the lake, didn't post about it, didn't tell anyone except Denise, my attorney, who helped me file the paperwork. I just waited. The yacht club sent their annual dues renewal in late July. Standard procedure. Lease payment for dock access goes to Talmadge Recreation Corp. The secretary sent it to the address on file, which was now my address. I opened that envelope like it was Christmas morning, then I drafted a reply. New lease terms, $5,000 per month, up from $800. Retroactive to August 1st. Payment due within 15 days, or dock access would be terminated completely per the original lease agreement's default clause. I hit send and poured myself 2 fingers of my father's favorite bourbon, Blanton's, the bottle I'd been saving for something special. Sat on my porch and watched the sunset over my lake. Wood smoke drifted from someone's fire pit across the water. Cicadas buzzed. Distant laughter from families at the public beach carried on the evening air. I didn't feel triumph yet, just anticipation, like waiting for a storm to break. It took 36 hours. Constance called an emergency yacht club board meeting. I heard about it from Vera, who heard about it from her neighbor, who heard it from Brenda Kilpatrick's sister. Small towns are beautiful that way. Information travels faster than gossip at a church potluck. The meeting was chaos. Constance was convinced I'd committed fraud, had to have bribed someone, stolen the lake somehow. And then she made the worst decision of her life. The yacht club board voted to refuse my terms, sent me a letter, drafted by Reginald, naturally, claiming my lease increase was unconscionable and void as against public policy. They weren't paying a dime. So I locked them out. August 1st, 6 a.m., I had a locksmith change every gate, every dock access point, every chain. New signs went up. Talmadge Recreation Corp property, private, no trespassing. I hired Deputy Kroll's nephew, off-duty sheriff's deputy looking for weekend work, to patrol the marina for the first week. The yacht club was banned from the lake, completely. By noon, my phone was ringing off the hook, angry voicemails, threats. One member screamed that I was destroying 30 years of tradition. Another said they'd sue me into bankruptcy. Constance showed up at my house that evening, again, this time with Reginald. "You can't do this," she said, voice shaking with rage. "I can. I did. It's in the lease agreement. Section 12, paragraph 4. Material breach allows immediate termination with 0 notice." Reginald tried reason. "Marcus, we can negotiate." "You had 15 days to negotiate. You sent me a letter saying my terms were void, so now the entire lease is void. You want access back? Accept my terms. Until then, enjoy the public boat ramp like everyone else." I closed the door, heard Constance screaming something about lawyers through the wood. The next 3 weeks were beautiful. Yacht club members tried sneaking onto the docks, got escorted out by deputies, tried claiming they had riparian rights. Denise shut that down with a 15-page memo. Tried going to the county commissioners, who told them this was a private contract dispute and to figure it out. Meanwhile, I opened the private marina to the rest of Pinewood Shores. 20 new families signed up for dock slips at $300 annually. Affordable rate, fair access. Kids who'd never been allowed past the members-only signs were suddenly fishing from the premium docks. The yacht club was desperate. Late August, they filed a lawsuit. Reginald drafted it himself. Fraudulent acquisition. Tortious interference with established use rights, demanding an injunction to block my unlawful eviction and restore their access immediately. They filed it in County Superior Court on a Wednesday. By Thursday, the local newspaper had picked it up. HOA dispute escalates. Lake ownership claims sparks legal battle. The article made me sound like a villain. Local veteran challenges decades of community tradition. Yacht club members fear permanent loss of recreational access. They quoted Mallory Gaines saying I was trying to destroy the fabric of our neighborhood. Then the social media assault started. The yacht club members flooded every local Facebook group, every next-door thread. Mallory created a change.org petition. Save our lake from corporate greed. Within 48 hours, it had 200 signatures. I came home one afternoon to find 3 slashed tires on my truck. The next morning, someone had planted a for sale sign in my yard, not one I'd put there. And the letters started arriving, actual handwritten hate mail. One called me a carpetbagger. Another said I should have died at sea instead of coming here to ruin decent people's lives. That one hurt more than I wanted to admit. But then something unexpected happened. A reporter from the local paper called. Kit Brennan, maybe 35, sharp voice, asked direct questions. "Some people say you're extorting the yacht club. How do you respond?" I could have hung up. Probably should have. But I remembered something from military training. Transparency beats silence when you're in the right. I paid $142,000 to rescue a bankrupt asset the county was about to seize, I told her. The yacht club's been paying below market rates for 15 years while excluding half the community. I offered them fair new terms. They refused and insulted me, so I terminated the lease, which is my legal right. Now 20 families who were excluded for decades have dock access. That's not extortion. That's justice. Can I see the documents? I sent her everything. Purchase agreement, tax payment receipts, the original lease, the yacht club's refusal letter, Desmond Pruitt's signature on the transfer papers. Her article ran Sunday, front page. David versus Goliath. Retired vet buys lake to fight HOA elitism. It was fair, detailed. She quoted Pruitt's original vision for an inclusive community, explained how the yacht club had slowly made the lake exclusive, mentioned Constance's harassment campaign, the towed boat, the bogus fines, the public humiliation, and she included the kicker. Tremaine offered reasonable terms. The yacht club refused. Now they're locked out and the rest of the community finally has access. The comments section exploded. Hundreds of people sharing their own HOA horror stories. A Charlotte news station picked it up and sent a crew to interview me. Public sentiment started shifting hard. I posted new rules for Lake Talmadge, completely legal as property owner. Public access hours, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. for all Pinewood Shores residents. Fishing permitted from all shorelines, previously prohibited by yacht club aesthetics rules. I set up a kayak rental station at the public ramp. $10 a day, honor system payment box. And I announced a community fishing derby for Labor Day weekend. Free entry, prizes for kids. That's when I found the smoking gun. While reviewing the yacht club's lease for the lawsuit, I noticed something. 6 dock slips were being subleased to non-residents, outsiders paying premium rates. The yacht club was pocketing the difference. But the original lease with Talmadge Recreation Corp had a members-only provision. Subleasing to non-members was a material breach of contract, which meant they'd violated the lease before I ever raised rates. Their lawsuit was built on a foundation they'd already cracked. I sent the evidence to Denise. She laughed so hard I heard her through the phone. "They sued you for breach of contract while they were actively breaching the contract," she said. "This is malpractice level stupid. Reginald's going to get destroyed." That night, Constance showed up at my house at 11:30 p.m. I heard her car pull up, saw her through the window. She looked wrong, hair disheveled, mascara smudged, none of the usual polish. When I opened the door, I could smell wine on her breath. "What do you want?" she said, voice shaking. "Money? I'll pay you $200,000 for the lake. Right now." "Not for sale." "Then what? Revenge? You want to humiliate me?" I thought about that. Really thought about it. Part of me did want revenge. Wanted to watch her lose everything the way she'd tried to make me lose everything. But I was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of anger. "No, Constance," I said. "I want what you tried to take from me. Peace. The difference is I'm willing to share it with everyone." Her voice broke. "You don't understand. The yacht club, my husband's partnership depends on those connections. If we lose access, then maybe you should have thought about that before you towed my boat." I wasn't cruel about it, didn't slam the door, just quietly said, "Good night, Constance," and waited for her to leave. She drove away, taillights disappearing into the dark. The frogs along the lake were deafening that night, their chorus mixing with the humid air, thick enough to drink. The next morning, I found my mailbox bashed in, baseball bat damage, metal bent at 90 degrees. My newly installed security camera caught Trevor Gaines's Tesla driving past at 3:47 a.m. I filed a police report, provided the footage. Deputy Kroll issued Trevor a citation for vandalism. "For what it's worth," Kroll said as he handed me the report copy, "most of us are rooting for you." I sat on my dock that evening in my father's old folding chair, canvas frayed, frame rusted, but still sturdy. Watched the sun set over the water, turning everything orange and pink. They hadn't figured it out yet. This was never about winning. It was about making sure nobody else got pushed around like this again. And if you're dealing with something similar right now, some petty tyrant making your life hell, stick with me. Because what happens next is going to give you a blueprint. Hit the like button if you're rooting for me. I need to know you're still here. Early September, Denise called me at 7 in the morning. "Marcus, you need to sit down for this." I was already sitting, coffee in hand, watching the mist lift off the lake, but something in her voice made me set the cup down. "I've been going through the yacht club's financials for the lawsuit discovery," she said, "and I found something." The yacht club had collected $374,000 in member dues over the past 3 years. Operating costs, dock maintenance, insurance, utilities totaled $89,000, which meant there should have been $285,000 sitting in their reserve fund. Current balance, $12,400. Someone had stolen nearly $270,000. "Look at the bank statements," Denise said. I could hear her flipping pages. "There are transfers to something called Wexford Properties LLC labeled as Lake Management Consulting Fees. Dozens of them. $3,000 here, $5,000 there, sometimes $10,000 at a time. Consulting for what? That's the thing. There's no consulting work. No contracts, no invoices, no documentation, just transfers. And the treasurer from the yacht club's past 4 years was Constance Wexford. She'd been paying herself from the club's bank account, funneling the money into her real estate business, and nobody had noticed because nobody audited the books. I felt sick. Not because of the money, because of what it meant. "This is embezzlement," Denise said. "Felony theft under North Carolina statute. If we report this, she's looking at 10 years minimum." "What about Reginald?" "If he knew, he's an accessory. If he drafted any legal documents that facilitated it, the state bar will disbar him. Either way, his career is over." I sat there listening to the cicadas, trying to process it. Constance had tried to destroy me over a boat in a driveway, and the whole time she'd been stealing from her own neighbors. Denise laid out my options. Report it to police immediately. Constance goes to prison. Use it as leverage to force a settlement. Yacht Club drops the lawsuit, Constance resigns, pays the money back. Or go public with the evidence and let the community decide. I thought about Lydia. 4 years gone, but I could still hear her voice sometimes. She used to say, "There's a difference between justice and revenge, Marcus. One heals, the other just spreads the hurt." I thought about the yacht club members, 120 families, most of whom had no idea their treasurer was robbing them blind. Brenda probably didn't know. Trevor and Mallory definitely didn't know. "Set up a meeting," I told Denise. "Constance, Reginald, and their attorney. I'll give them a deal." We met at Denise's office 3 days later. Conference room with a long mahogany table, leather chairs, the smell of fresh coffee that nobody touched. I slid a folder across to Constance. She opened it. I watched the color drain from her face as she saw the bank statements, the highlighted transfers, the evidence of 3 years of theft. Reginald looked at the documents, then at his wife. His jaw muscle twitched. His fingers drummed the table. I could see him calculating how bad this was, how fast his career was about to implode. The room was silent for 30 seconds. Felt like 30 minutes. "We'll need to discuss this," Constance finally said, voice small and defeated. I stood to leave, paused at the door. 48 hours, I said. After that, the police get a copy. I walked out into September sunshine and texted my daughter, "I think it's almost over." Constance didn't respond for 2 days. I spent that time building something better than revenge. First stop, Vera Polanski's house. I brought coffee and pastries from the bakery in town. She answered the door in a flowered housecoat, eyes lighting up when she saw me. "Tell me about Desmond Pruitt's original vision," I said. She pulled out a cardboard box from her hall closet. Inside were dozens of photographs from the early 1990s. Lake Talmadge grand opening, community BBQs, kids fishing clinics, families of every background splashing in the water together. Desmond wanted this to be for everyone, Vera said, handling the photos like precious artifacts. He grew up poor, first in his family to own property. When he developed this place, he insisted on affordable lots and public access. The yacht club was supposed to be just a casual fishing club, neighbors chipping in for a shared dock. What happened? Same thing that always happens. People with money wanted it exclusive, pushed out the families who couldn't afford the dues, turned a community resource into a status symbol. I looked at those old photos, diverse families, kids fishing off public docks, elderly couples in lawn chairs watching sunsets. Everything Pinewood Shores was supposed to be. "I'm going to bring this back," I told her. Next, I reached out to Kit Brennan, the reporter who'd written the Fair article about me. We met at Rosie's Grill, red vinyl booths, smell of bacon grease and coffee strong enough to strip paint. "I want to do a story on community restoration," I said. "Not about taking down Constance, about building something better." Kit stirred her coffee. "If she doesn't take your deal, I'm reporting what I know about the embezzlement." "Fair enough. But let's lead with hope, not scandal." She agreed. Started helping me draft a community outreach plan, writing articles about the public fishing derby, the scholarship fund I was planning. Third ally came from an unexpected place. I was having lunch at Rosie's when Deputy Kroll slid into my booth, off-duty, still in uniform but without the official stiffness. "Got a question for you," he said. "These new lake rules you're implementing, you planning to enforce them?" "That's the idea," he nodded slowly. "Sheriff's office has gotten 14 complaints about yacht club security patrols harassing families using public access points. They've been acting like private police. Legally murky situation. What are you suggesting? Formalize your rules. Make them official. If you do, we'll enforce them equally. No more yacht club vigilantes pushing people around." I learned something important that day. Official structures, even simple ones, command respect that informal enforcement never can. People respect rules when they're clear and fairly applied. That week, I worked with Denise to draft a comprehensive Lake Talmadge community use agreement. The key was making it fair, transparent, and inclusive. Any Pinewood Shores resident got free basic access, shoreline, public docks, swimming areas. Premium services, private slip rentals, covered storage, cost $300 annually. Affordable for most families, and it generated revenue for maintenance. The yacht club could stay as a tenant, but under new terms. No more members-only restrictions, mandatory quarterly financial audits, and $2,000 monthly lease, higher than before but fair market rate. Here's what made it work. I structured revenue so 60% funded lake maintenance, 30% went to community programs, and 10% to environmental conservation. Nobody could accuse me of profiteering. This was about stewardship, not profit. I budgeted $45,000 for first-year improvements, repair and expand the public dock, install solar-powered lights on the walking trail, build a wheelchair-accessible picnic pavilion, stock the lake with 2,000 fish fingerlings through a partnership with NC Wildlife Commission. The conservation partnership was key. Partnering with state agencies gave me credibility and access to grants. I'd learned that trick from a guy I served with who started a veterans land trust after retirement. Government loves to support private conservation efforts because it saves them money. I recruited volunteers by spreading word through churches, community boards, Kit's newspaper articles. Within a week, I had commitments from 15 neighbors to help with construction and programming, monthly kids' fishing clinics, free equipment, instruction, pizza lunch, quarterly lake cleanup days, an annual $20,500 scholarship for a Pinewood student studying environmental science. At the first volunteer meeting, 20 people showed up at the library. I met Caleb Grayson, 19 years old, worked at a marina in the next town, studying marine biology at community college. "I grew up here," he said after the meeting. "Yacht club never let my family on their docks. We weren't the right fit." He offered to volunteer 10 hours a week managing boat rentals and youth programs. I hired him on the spot, $16 an hour. First employee of the new Talmadge Recreation Corp. The 48-hour deadline passed with no word from Constance. On day 3, Reginald called. Not Constance. Reginald. "Can we meet?" he asked. "Just you and me." We met at the overlook above the lake. September afternoon, leaves just starting to turn. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "I didn't know about the embezzlement," he said. "Not until you showed me the evidence. She hid it completely. Separate bank account I never reviewed." He stared at the water. "Our marriage is over. My law partnership survives only because I'm cooperating with their internal ethics review." Then he gave me the problem. Constance didn't have $270,000 to repay. Wexford Properties was insolvent. She'd burned through the embezzled money on failed real estate flips during the 2022 market crash. Their house was underwater on the mortgage. There was nothing left. "I'll sell our house," Reginald said. "Downsize to a condo. That gets you $180,000 within 6 months. I'll personally guarantee the remaining $90,000 over 3 years. He looked at me directly. "One request. Let her resign for personal reasons. No public disclosure. It protects our son from humiliation. And it keeps her out of prison." I thought about it, really thought. This was the moment I could destroy Constance completely. But Lydia's voice again. "One heals. The other just spreads the hurt." "She has to apologize," I said. "Personally. To me, to Vera, to anyone else she harassed." Reginald nodded. "Done." We shook hands. His palm was sweaty, the grip of desperate relief. I watched the sunset over the lake that night and felt exhaustion, not triumph, but also, finally, something close to peace. The last week of September, Constance made one final desperate play. She couldn't win legally, couldn't win financially, so she went for social destruction. Anonymous social media accounts started appearing, at Pinewood Truth 89, at Lakeside Watchdog, at Concerned Neighbor 4. Created with burner emails, impossible to trace directly back to Constance, but the timing was too perfect to be coincidence. They flooded every local platform, Facebook groups, Nextdoor, the Pinewood Shores subreddit that 3 people normally used. The posts were insidious, claimed I was planning to turn the lake into a commercial fishing operation, said I'd ban all recreational use, accused me of stealing taxpayer money. Somehow my military pension became evidence of corruption. The worst ones suggested I was mentally unstable from PTSD and dangerous to have in the community. I'd survived a lot in my life. Combat training, hurricane rescues, watching my wife die over 18 months of brutal cancer. But there's something uniquely violating about watching strangers assassinate your character online while hiding behind fake names. Then the sabotage started. September 26th, someone spray-painted "Lake Thief" across the public dock in red letters 3 feet high. I spent 4 hours the next morning scrubbing it off, fingers stained red, knees aching from kneeling on wet wood. 2 nights later, someone cut the chain on the boat launch gate and left it wide open. Unauthorized vehicles tore up the maintenance road, deep ruts in the gravel, tire tracks through the grass buffer I'd just reseeded. My security cameras caught the dock vandalism, but the perpetrators wore hoodies and knew exactly where the camera blind spots were. The gate cutting happened at 3:17 a.m., too dark to identify anyone clearly, but Caleb recognized something. "Boss," he said, reviewing the footage with me. "That walk, the way that guy moves, that's Trevor Gaines." He was right. The gait was distinctive. Trevor had injured his knee playing college lacrosse, walked with a slight hitch in his left leg. You sure you want to tell me this? I asked Caleb. These people can make your life difficult. He was 19 years old, working for $16 an hour, and he looked me dead in the eye. They already made my life difficult for 19 years, I'm sure. I filed a police report, provided the footage. Deputy Kroll issued Trevor a citation for criminal mischief and trespassing. But the social campaign got worse. Someone printed flyers, 100 of them, claiming I'd forced Desmond Pruitt to sell the lake under duress while he was senile. Left them on doorsteps throughout Pinewood Shores. 40 homes, maybe more. The implication was clear. I was a predator who'd exploited an elderly man. Pruitt's nephew saw one of the flyers and called his uncle immediately. Pruitt called me 30 minutes later, voice shaking with rage. "I'm not dead yet," he said, "and I'm sure as hell not senile." 2 days later, Pruitt posted a video to YouTube. His nephew helped him record it, 4 minutes long, filmed in his assisted living room. Pruitt sat in his wheelchair, blanket over his lap, but his voice was strong and his eyes were clear. "My name is Desmond Pruitt. I founded Pinewood Shores 35 years ago. Some folks are spreading lies about Marcus Tremaine. Let me set the record straight." He described his vision for an inclusive community, explained how the yacht club had hijacked that vision over decades, detailed how I'd paid off his tax debt and saved the lake from county seizure. "Marcus is doing what I always wanted but couldn't finish. Anyone slandering him is lying, simple as that. And I'm not senile, I'm just old. There's a difference." The video got 12,000 views in 48 hours, shared across every local platform. The comment section filled with support for Pruitt, for me, for the idea that communities should be inclusive rather than exclusive. The tide was turning. I didn't respond to any of the smears publicly, didn't defend myself, just kept working. Finished dock repairs on September 29th, installed the new pavilion, 6 picnic tables, built-in grills, a roof to provide shade. The wood smelled like fresh-cut pine, and I got splinters in my palms from helping physically. I wasn't going to supervise this, I was going to build it. On Saturday, October 1st, 15 neighbors showed up to help paint the pavilion, string lights along the walking trail, clear brush. People I'd never met, families with kids, retirees looking for purpose. And Brenda Kilpatrick showed up, Constance's former bridge partner, the woman who'd turned me away from the 4th of July potluck. She arrived with 2 gallons of homemade lemonade in a cooler and couldn't look me in the eye at first. "I was wrong about you," she finally said, voice quiet. "I'm sorry." I took the lemonade. "Thank you, Brenda." That was it. No grand speech, no dramatic reconciliation, just 2 people trying to do better. We scheduled Community Lake Day for October 7th. Free BBQ lunch, kids fishing derby, kayak demos, live bluegrass band. Open invitation to every Pinewood Shores resident. I posted flyers, sent emails, Kit wrote an article. Then, 4 days before the event, Constance filed one last complaint. North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality claimed I'd disturbed protected wetlands during dock construction, violated stormwater regulations. It triggered an automatic investigation, which could shut down the event, freeze all lake activities for 90 days pending review. Constance's calculation was obvious. Even if the complaint was baseless, the bureaucratic process would humiliate me. Cancel my big event, make me look incompetent. October 4th, DEQ Inspector Roland Vasquez showed up for preliminary assessment. Mid-40s, clipboard measuring tape, the weary expression of someone who'd seen every petty property dispute imaginable. I handed him my permits, all of them. Detailed engineering surveys, environmental impact studies, stormwater management plans. I'd gotten them months earlier because Coast Guard training taught me one thing: always follow regulations, always have documentation, always assume someone will challenge you. Vasquez spent 3 hours walking the property, taking measurements, reviewing plans. When he finished, he found me at the pavilion. "You're clear," he said. "No wetland disturbance. All construction within approved zones. Stormwater plan exceeds requirements." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Off the record? This complaint was frivolous. Someone wasted state resources on a grudge. We frown on that. Is false complaint filing punishable? If proven malicious, the filer can face penalties, fines, sometimes sanctions." He handed me a form. "You can file a counter complaint if you want. We investigate those too." I filed it that afternoon. requested an investigation into Constance Wexford for knowingly false environmental complaint. Didn't announce it, didn't brag, just planted a seed. October 6th, the day before Community Lake Day, I walked the property at dusk. Everything was ready. Pavilion gleaming with string lights, dock solid, grass mowed, portable stage assembled for the band. I sat in my father's chair on the dock and watched the last light fade. Tomorrow, everyone would see what this place could be. No more fighting, just proof. October 7th, Community Lake Day. I arrived at 6 a.m. for final setup. The weather had decided to cooperate. 72 degrees, clear blue sky, light breeze carrying the smell of pine and cut grass. Perfect southern autumn day. 20 volunteers were already there. Caleb had organized an early shift, setting up food tents, testing the sound system, inflating a bouncy castle for kids. The energy was different than I'd expected. People were smiling, laughing, excited. At 7:15, a Lexus SUV pulled into the parking area. My stomach dropped. Constance. She stepped out alone. No Reginald, no allies. She looked diminished somehow. Minimal makeup, jeans, and a plain blouse. I'd never seen her in denim. Her posture was different too, shoulders slightly hunched, defeated. She walked toward me at the pavilion. No witnesses nearby. This wasn't the public apology we'd agreed on. This was something else. "I'm not supposed to be here," she said, stopping 10 feet away. "Reginald said to stay home, but I needed to say this before everyone shows up." I waited, didn't speak. "I'm sorry." Her voice cracked. "For the boat, for the harassment, for all of it. You didn't deserve what I did." The silence stretched. I could hear volunteers laughing near the food tents, someone testing a microphone with feedback squeal. "I convinced myself I was protecting property values, maintaining standards," she continued. "But really, I was just terrified of becoming irrelevant. You moved here and didn't need my approval. That scared me more than I wanted to admit." "So you tried to destroy me?" "Yes." Tears now, mascara starting to run. "And I destroyed myself instead. We're selling our house next month, moving to a condo in Raleigh. My marriage is over. The yacht club voted me out. I have nothing left but the chance to at least be honest. I thought about all the things I could say, all the ways I could twist the knife. She'd earned every bit of pain she was feeling. But I remembered Lydia, remembered my dad, remembered what kind of man I wanted to be. "I accept your apology," I said. "That doesn't mean we're friends, Constance, but it means I don't have to carry anger toward you anymore. And neither do you toward yourself," she whispered. "Thank you." She turned to leave. "You're welcome to stay," I called after her, "for the event, not as whatever you were before, just as someone who lives here." She shook her head. "I think that would be too much, but thank you for offering." She drove away. I never saw her again. By 9 a.m., the gates opened officially. Within an hour, 80 residents had arrived. By 10, a news crew from Charlotte showed up. Kit had tipped them off. By 11, we had over 200 people. The kids' fishing derby started at 10:30. 40 children ages 5 to 14, most using loaner equipment from the tackle box Caleb had assembled. The winner was a 7-year-old girl named Piper, who caught a 3-pound bass and screamed so loud half the lake heard her. We gave her a trophy and a $50 gift card to the local tackle shop. She cried happy tears. Lunch was chaos in the best way. Volunteers served over 300 plates, pulled pork, coleslaw, baked beans. My father's recipes, cooked overnight by Vera and a crew of church ladies who treated BBQ like a competitive sport. The smell of hickory smoke mixed with sunscreen and lake water. Kids splashed near the shore. Dogs ran around on leashes, tails wagging. Elderly couples slow danced to the bluegrass band playing Country Roads. The news crew interviewed me around 2 p.m. "You've turned a property dispute into a community celebration," the reporter said. "How'd you do it?" "I didn't do it alone," I said. "This is what happens when people remember that shared spaces belong to everyone, not just those who can afford a membership fee." What's next for Lake Talmadge? We're establishing a scholarship for local kids interested in environmental science, partnering with the State Wildlife Commission for conservation programs, and making sure that 30 years from now, any family can come here and fish, swim, and feel like they belong. During the interview, I noticed Trevor Gaines in the crowd. He was there with his wife Mallory and their 2 young sons. After the camera stopped rolling, he approached me, extended his hand. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I vandalized your property. I was wrong. I'd like to make it right. I'll volunteer for lake maintenance crew if you'll have me." I shook his hand. His palm was sweaty, nervous. "We always need volunteers," I said. "Welcome aboard." At 2:30, I took the stage. Unplanned, spontaneous. The crowd quieted. 250 people, maybe more. I didn't use a microphone, just projected my voice the way the Coast Guard taught me. "I want to thank everyone who came today. 3 months ago, I was just a guy who wanted to fish in peace. Then someone tried to take that away. I could have gotten bitter, could have left. But my dad taught me something. When someone tries to fence off a piece of the world, you don't just knock down the fence. You build something better in its place." I gestured to the crowd. "This, all of you, this is what better looks like. Kids learning to fish, neighbors meeting each other, families making memories. That's worth more than any lawsuit, any grudge, any property value. This lake isn't mine. This lake, it's ours, and it always will be." The applause started small, then built like thunder. People stood. Some were crying, emotional release after months of tension. Then a car pulled up that I wasn't expecting. Desmond Pruitt, 81 years old, 4-hour drive from Richmond with his nephew. He'd insisted on coming after seeing photos on Facebook. He approached slowly, using a walker, breathing hard. I offered him my father's chair on the dock, the seat of honor. Pruitt sat and stared at the lake he'd created 35 years ago, now restored to its original purpose. Tears ran down his weathered face. Not sadness, joy. By 5 p.m., the last attendees were leaving. Volunteers stayed to clean up, everyone pitching in. We finished by 6:30, the pavilion spotless, trash bags lined up near the parking area. Caleb found me sitting on the dock. "Boss, we did it!" "No, kid," I said. "We did it, and we're just getting started." The sunset painted everything orange and pink. Water reflected fire. I could smell lingering hickory smoke, hear Vera humming an old hymn as she swept the pavilion. I sat in my father's chair one last time that day, exhausted, satisfied, at peace. 2 weeks later, October 21st, Pinewood Shores HOA held its mandatory annual meeting. These meetings were usually dead boring. Maybe 60 people showed up out of 340 homes, just enough for quorum. Most residents treated it like jury duty, obligatory, painful, over as fast as possible. This year was different. The community center auditorium seats 200. By 7 p.m., we had standing room only. 280 residents, plus media. Kit Brennan was there with her photographer. The Charlotte news crew that had covered Community Lake Day sent a reporter. Word had spread that this meeting might actually be interesting. Gerald Montrose, interim HOA president, 60-something retired accountant, boring but fair, called the meeting to order at 7:05. "Before we begin standard business," he said, adjusting his reading glasses, "I've been asked to read a statement from the Talmadge Yacht Club board." The room went silent. Helena Briggs stood, mid-50s, nurse practitioner, the yacht club's new president. She walked to the podium carrying a single sheet of paper, hands slightly shaking. 3 weeks ago, the yacht club filed a lawsuit against Marcus Tremaine challenging his ownership of Lake Talmadge. Her voice was steady but quiet. "After reviewing all evidence and consulting with our attorney, we discovered Mr. Tremaine's acquisition was completely legal. We had no case. We are formally withdrawing that lawsuit and dropping all claims." She paused, looking directly at me in the back row. "We were wrong. We acted out of fear of losing control rather than considering what was best for our community. Mr. Tremaine offered us fair lease terms. We refused out of spite. He locked us out for 3 weeks, which was his legal right. And in those 3 weeks, 20 families who'd been excluded for decades finally got to use the docks their property taxes helped maintain." Another pause. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum. "The yacht club has accepted new lease terms, $2,000 per month with full community access provisions. We've eliminated all members-only restrictions. We've implemented quarterly financial audits by independent CPA. And our membership has increased 15% since these changes. Families who felt excluded are now joining. We were forced to remember why we exist, to share the joy of the water, not hoard it. We're grateful Mr. Tremaine gave us that chance. She sat down. Real applause this time, not polite, genuine. Gerald cleared his throat. There's one more matter the board must address before we proceed. His voice dropped, became formal. During the legal dispute with Mr. Tremaine, certain financial irregularities came to light regarding the yacht club's treasury. The room went still. You could feel 280 people lean forward. Over the past 3 years, approximately $270,000 in yacht club member dues were transferred to a private LLC without proper authorization or documentation. Those transfers were made by the club's treasurer during that period. Gerald paused, looked up from his notes. That treasurer was Constance Wexford. The room exploded. Gasps, scattered shouts. Brenda Kilpatrick's hand flew to her mouth. Trevor Gaines stood halfway out of his seat, face red. She stole from us? Gerald raised both hands for quiet. It took 30 seconds. Mrs. Wexford has entered into a legal repayment agreement. The full amount will be returned to the yacht club over the next 3 years. Mr. Tremaine discovered this embezzlement during lawsuit discovery, but chose not to press criminal charges. He felt the community deserved restitution, not headlines. 280 people turned to look at me in the back row. I stood, walked slowly to the microphone. The room was so silent I could hear my own footsteps. I could have sent her to prison, I said quietly. Spent 6 months in court, made headlines, watched her get sentenced. But destroying someone doesn't heal anything. Getting your money back does. Every dollar Constance stole will be repaid. That's justice. The rest is just revenge. Someone started clapping, then 10 people, then 50, then everyone. Not for me. For the truth. For finally understanding why Constance had fought so hard, so desperately. She wasn't protecting property values. She was protecting her secret. Gerald waited for quiet. Mr. Wexford has requested to speak during resident comments. The board is allowing it. Reginald Wexford stood. Constance's soon-to-be ex-husband, the attorney who drafted threatening letters. He looked like he'd aged 10 years and 3 months, pale, gaunt, shirt wrinkled. I didn't know, he said, voice cracking. Not until Marcus showed me the bank statements. My wife hid it completely. Separate accounts I never reviewed. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm here to say what she cannot. He gripped the podium. What happened this summer wasn't a property dispute. It was harassment. My wife targeted a good man who served this country for 26 years because he didn't seek her approval. She abused HOA rules. She committed crimes. And I enabled her by choosing my marriage and social standing over doing what was right. His hands were shaking. Constance and I are divorcing. I've resigned from all HOA roles. I'm cooperating with the State Bar's ethics investigation. And I'm begging this community to pass reform so this can never happen again. He looked at me. Marcus, I'm sorry. You deserved better from all of us. He sat. The silence was crushing. Every eye in the room was on me. I walked back to the microphone. Reginald, thank you. That took real courage. I turned to face the packed auditorium. This was never about one bad person. It was about a system that concentrates power without accountability. Constance could do what she did because nobody checked the books. Nobody questioned arbitrary rules. Nobody asked, is this fair? I took a breath. I'm proposing 3 amendments. First, complete transparency. All meeting minutes online within 48 hours. Annual independent financial audits. Any rule change requires 30-day notice and community vote, not just board approval. Second, anti-retaliation protections. Explicitly ban using HOA rules for harassment. Create anonymous reporting for board abuse. Establish a rotating community ombudsman position. Third, community investment. 10% of all surplus funds go to projects residents vote on. Scholarships, playgrounds, conservation, things that actually improve lives. I gripped the podium edges. I came here to heal after losing my wife. Instead, someone tried to destroy me over a boat. I could have left, could have gotten bitter. But my father taught me something. When someone builds a fence to keep people out, you don't just knock it down. You build something better in its place. I gestured to the crowd. All of you. This is what better looks like. Not revenge, not punishment, just systems that protect everyone equally. My voice strengthened. I'm asking this community to be better than what happened. Not by destroying Constance, but by making sure no one else gets crushed by petty power. By remembering that rules exist to serve people, not control them. I stepped back. One person started clapping, then 5, then 20. Then everyone stood. The applause built like thunder, feet stomping, the old floor shaking, Vera Polanski in the front row clapping until her hands were red, tears streaming. Kit Brennan wasn't even pretending to be objective. She was on her feet too. Gerald called for a vote on all 3 amendments. 94% approval, overwhelming mandate. After the meeting, people mobbed me in the parking lot. Deputy Kroll shook my hand hard enough to hurt. You should run for president. I laughed. I'm done with politics. I just want to fish. Vera caught my arm, squeezed with her frail fingers. You didn't just win, Marcus. You reminded us what community means. I drove home with the windows down. October night, cool and clear, smelling of wood smoke and cut grass. I passed the lake, moonlight shimmering on calm water. 3 families fishing from the public dock, kids laughing, a couple walking hand in hand along the shore. Our lake. Finally. I smiled, not triumphant, just deeply, quietly content. Dad would have loved this. 6 months later, April 2025. Spring hit Pinewood shores like a blessing. The lake reflected cloudless blue sky. Dogwoods bloomed white and pink along the shoreline. The pavilion I'd built was covered in wisteria, purple flowers hanging like curtains. Lake Talmadge was thriving. 450 residents now used the lake regularly, up from the 120 yacht club members who'd controlled access before. Community fishing clinics ran monthly with 80 kids enrolled. The NC Wildlife Commission had declared us a model sustainable recreation area. We'd even generated an $18,000 revenue surplus in 6 months, which funded a wheelchair-accessible fishing pier and native plant restoration project. But the best part? I wasn't running it alone anymore. The community had taken ownership. Volunteers organized events. Residents voted on improvement projects. The lake belonged to everyone, which meant everyone cared for it. April 15th. We held the first annual Raymond Tremaine Environmental Science Scholarship Ceremony. 50 people gathered at the pavilion, banners hung from the rafters, folding chairs arranged in rows. The smell of Vera's coffee cake filled the air. The recipient was Caleb Grayson, my 19-year-old employee who'd recognized Trevor Gaines on that security footage, the kid who'd been excluded from this lake his entire childhood. I handed him the check, $2,500, enough to cover his fall semester tuition at community college. Caleb's speech was short. His voice cracked halfway through. A year ago, I was told I didn't belong on this lake. Now I'm studying to protect lakes like this everywhere. That's what access looks like. That's what community looks like. He looked directly at me. Thank you for proving that one person can change everything. But it wasn't one person. It was never one person. The HOA's new transparency requirements had sparked changes throughout Pinewood Shores. 3 other neighborhood committees implemented quarterly audits. The community ombudsman position, held by Vera, who accepted despite her age, had resolved 2 disputes without lawyers. The 10% surplus rule funded solar panels on the community center and a little free library network. People were talking to each other again. Neighbors who'd stopped speaking during the yacht club controversy were having BBQs together. Kids from different streets were fishing side by side. Constance never came back. She and Reginald finalized their divorce in February. She'd moved to Raleigh, working for a small realty firm. Massive step down from owning Wexford properties. The repayment plan was working, $1,500 per month. Difficult, but manageable. No criminal charges filed. I didn't celebrate her downfall, just celebrated that she couldn't hurt anyone else. The yacht club had transformed too. Membership diversified, economically, racially, age-wise. They hosted community events now. Free kayak demos, youth sailing lessons. Helena Briggs wrote in their newsletter, Marcus forced us to remember why we exist, to share the joy of the water, not hoard it. My daughter Sienna visited monthly now, up from twice a year. Our relationship had deepened through this whole mess. She'd helped design the conservation programs, connected me with environmental nonprofits, reminded me that Lydia would have been proud. And I'd started talking to someone, Diana Ruiz. 48, worked at the library, widow, loved fishing as much as I did. Nothing serious yet, just coffee once a week. But the possibility of future love was emerging, slow and careful, like spring after a hard winter. The biggest thing? I'd established a permanent conservation easement on Lake Talmadge. Legal protection ensuring the lake could never be commercially developed. It had to remain accessible to Pinewood residents forever. 50 years from now, 100 years from now, kids would still fish here. I'd learned that trick from a land trust attorney. Conservation easements limit future development while reducing property tax burden. Any landowner can explore it. Early May morning, just after dawn, I launched my father's boat. The 1987 Champion that started this whole thing. Engine purred smooth. Water was glass. I drifted to the middle of the lake and cut the motor. Sunrise painted the sky orange and pink. Mist lifted off the water. Birds sang. Somewhere on shore, a child laughed. Early riser with a parent, already casting a line. I thought about my father, thought about Lydia, thought about what I'd built, cast my fishing line and watched ripples spread across the surface. Didn't matter if I caught anything. This moment, this peace, this was the catch. People ask if it was worth it. The money, the stress, the fight. I tell them, I didn't do it to win. I did it so my dad's boat could stay in my driveway, so kids could fish without permission slips. So a lake could be what it was always meant to be, a place that belongs to everyone. Constance taught me something, though she didn't mean to. Systems only crush you if you let them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's building something so good they can't touch it. And if you're dealing with your own HOA nightmare, your own petty tyrant, your own impossible fight, document everything. Find your leverage, and remember, they're counting on you giving up. Don't. Got your own HOA horror story? Drop it in the comments. The crazier, the better. Let's commiserate. And if you want more stories about people who fought back and won, hit that subscribe button, because justice porn is my favorite genre, and I've got a whole folder of these.